You're here for a purpose. Nothing happens by chance. And I know that maybe most of us are not biblical scholars, and probably few people know the meaning of the name Zecharia. But the meaning is, the Lord has remembered. God remembered so many times in Scripture to remind us about Jerusalem, but how extraordinary that those of us seated here today, that God has remembered again to send another Zecharia to make sure we don't forget. So will you please welcome Zecharia Sitchin.
Zecharia Sitchin will be remembered among the pioneers in our history. His contribution to our understanding of our humanity is no less as profound as the discoveries of Galileo and Copernicus. He will be known as the Einstein of our cosmology. Zecharia was ahead of his time, and we were among the fortunate few who knew this and who knew him. Our lives are forever shifted because of Zechariah's work and his presence in our lives. He inspired us to be better academicians, astronomers, and archaeologists, no matter what our professions. He encouraged us to become seekers of the truth and teachers of this untold story of our human history through his Sitchin Seminars. Zecharia wanted us to know one another and to continue to work together to that end when he was no longer with us. Today we gather to begin to do just this as we remember and honor Zecharia.
Zecharia, I'm delighted to be here, to be a part of your memorial service. I know that you can hear us, and I know that you still abide in your non-material state right now. I'd like to thank you with all of those of us gathered together here today for the extraordinary, indeed I think unique service that you have provided to our human family by conduiting up through time the content of the message that the Sumerian people wanted to leave for their progeny.
I think we have what was called punctuated evolution, and this is clearly documented in the Sumerian text. They altered the genes, they tried various experiments. That was one great punctuation in evolution. After the deluge, there was another great punctuation in social evolution, when all the great arts and wheat that couldn't possibly be domesticated without incredibly sophisticated knowledge, sheep, which there were no domestic ancestors, wild ancestors to.
And our own science is beginning to say, well, wait a minute, yes, we've been wrong. Well, we can't quite agree with you, but we don't know what to do yet.
What is accepted as the peak of science is only a convention in time. I mean, it changes. I mean, look at the fact that there are maps of the world that showed Antarctica without ice, long before Western science accepted that this could be possible.
Every time you open a newspaper, and if it's a scientific newspaper, you will see another verification of something he said 25 years ago, whether it's astronomy, archaeology, anthropology, paleontology.
In my opinion, anyone who's intellectually honest would have to accept a significant part of his writings. I mean, the evidence to me is so overwhelming.
He just keeps on being right, you know, and they just can't argue with success. I mean, science and time have been proving him right.
No one had the depth of scholarship, and I mean, he had a whole scenario complete. The fact that he went into the trouble of really working out an entire theory, complete, which, if true, or even if partially true, completely revises our whole concept of history and cosmology and religion and mythology and everything.
We're beginning to realize that the belief systems that we have aren't holding up, and people are dropping them. The major religions are kind of having a hard time holding together, and people are looking for a belief system that has some basis in fact that can be backed up.
And I think that Mr. Sitchin's explanations account for the data much more efficiently than all the religious explanations.
So this particular kind of a venue gives us a chance to look at a basis for our own history as a species, and to be able to say, well, maybe we did come from the stars, maybe we did come from some other people that came here and seeded us. And there's documentation to back that up.
Actually, in his book, Divine Encounters, Sitchin very cleverly deals with this. In the last few pages, he sort of leads you on to the last few pages and said, yes, but even beyond Nibiru, there had to be something that created it. A God that created the gods, if you will, that the ancient Sumerians called gods.
So the result is freedom for everybody. Knowledge is freedom. I think it's freedom to know who you are and to decide how you're going to act without having, a structured religious or a structured organization tell you.
If we can look at ourselves, all of us on this planet, as coming from the same DNA, even, it would be a lot harder to war.
I can remember actually weeping as I read some of your work, because questions that had bothered me and literally tortured me for so many years, and I couldn't find the answers and I couldn't find where to go, and there you had it. My life is divided into pre-Zecharia and Zecharia later.
We see that the academic and the religious establishments are addicted to the beliefs, and they won't change them. Even in the light of rediscovered ancient wisdom that's coming about, is showing that something was lost along the way, mistranslated, misinterpreted.
I believe that most of us are basically conditioned to believe certain things that is based on incomplete information. And what he has done is simply just found out information that we should all know and should have known for a long time that is just simply missing from the books.
And nobody wants to admit they're wrong, but it's great to be wrong. That means you're still learning. And if you're still learning, hip hip hooray.
He's gone through and historically looked at the tablets. He has found the screwdrivers, to use his terminology.
And you have conveyed it to the modern age of the extraordinary potential history of our human species that few other individuals, either in our time or earlier, have provided any more important service to our human family.
So he was just a great figure, and I think he changed the lives of many people.
He really represented a huge transformation in thinking for me, and introduced me to a lot of new ideas and a new world. So, Zecharia, thank you.
For this has opened the eyes of many millions of people who have, because of your writings, have for the first time become convinced both that an actual extraterrestrial civilization exists and has been able to come here to our planet, and also to explain what our relationship is to this extraterrestrial civilization.
And detailed explanations of how to maintain a spaceport. There are carved in stone pictures of three-stage rocket ships, accounts of nuclear fallout and waste of Babylon and Sodom and Gomorrah. The fights of Indra and his rivals were merely the fights of different groups of Anunnaki, these astronauts and their human, the humans that were on their side. And so the same thing happens in Mesoamerica. We have extensive evidence that should be examined by any serious scholar who wants to know the history of humanity.
And Zecharia is a translator, one of the best in the world, and always one of the few 5 or 6 in the world that can translate what he translates. And he starts out with translations, and it's left up to everybody else to come up with the theory. And that's the world of difference between the old way and the new way. He said, translate, you can think for yourself.
It's nice to see that Zechariah's work is being now, is making it to television in Ancient Aliens. He's being sourced as a reference in many publications.
But I would like the intelligent young students who have no interest in maintaining reputations built on falsehoods to examine the data objectively. And when the old guard loses its control of academia and the press, then perhaps truth will get a hearing.
These are hungry people. They don't want to wait for, the Board of Regents to wait 15 years before that book finally makes it to the university.
This interest and loyalty that is partly expressed here today has sustained not only the book, it has also sustained me, because after each such event I feel re-energized. I feel that what I've been doing in my life has not been a waste. It had a purpose, it had a meaning.
Zecharia, few people in history have provided any greater service. And we gathered here today would like to thank you and tell you how deeply appreciative we are of the service you have performed for all of us. Thank you, Zecharia. We look forward to welcoming you back in your next incarnation.
That's great.